Hi, my name is Shan, and I am the author of this upcoming release, Bands of a Small Hurricane. This will be released on October 4th of this year, 2022. And this one was my first. This is Thieves, Beasts, and Men, which was released almost exactly 1 year earlier. We'll put that down for now. So, actually, we won't. Being on camera is like my worst nightmare, so bear with me. When this book went through the whole traditional publishing process, I had it in my mind that I wanted to, if not absolutely do the narration for the audiobook, at the very least I wanted the opportunity to audition for it. And in publishing, usually the author is kind of the last thing to know anything, so I got an email, yay, audiobook, and it was already on its way. So I never really got the opportunity to do that, and that always kind of bummed me out. So the narrator that was picked for this book, she's great. She did a fantastic job, stellar. It was really hard for me to listen to because she read it so completely differently than I have in my mind and out loud. She paused at different words. She emphasized different words. It was jarring, and it was a little surreal. I don't know how else to describe it. It was hard for me to hear, and I think that was just me as the author. I suspect that's probably normal. So when this one started going towards audio, I made sure I was absolutely 100% the narrator for this book. Now, I am not a professional narrator. I am not a voice actor or actor of any kind. I'm behind the camera, not in front of it. So this is out of the box for me, but I think it'll be okay. What I'm recording today is not, I guarantee you it's not going to be the final audio that'll be on the audiobook. This is basically a rough draft dry run. So this is my lovely microphone. This is my lovely pop filter. And I've got my laptop over here out of the way. It'll be recording onto software as we go. I'll be reading from an iPad. I can tell you a little bit of what I know. Wait, scratch that. Because this isn't like the absolute finished thing, just keep in mind, this is the first time I'm reading this out loud. I've kind of practiced myself. I've read it out loud many times, but this is totally a rough draft of the final audiobook. And it just kind of is what it is. I had to turn the fans and the air off so we didn't get any of that ambient noise. My shirt is wrinkled because the last thing I wanted to do when it's hot and there's no AC or fan is put my shirt in the dryer to de-wrinkle it. So right now I am the rough draft of a woman about to make the rough draft of an audiobook. I'll tell you a couple things I know just from reading and studying. I created this booth today. This is like soundproofing foam, and I have it attached to this frame, which is some old shitty fold-up shelf that I've carried around for like 20 years. So it's finally serving a purpose. I've got carpet on the ground. I've got a carpeted panel on the top. I don't know if you can see that. So I've got this totally surrounded as best as I can. Like I said, all the things are off in addition to air and stuff like that. I've also, you should turn all electronics off. I've got my phone off. I've got my Wacom off. I've got my big computer off. And that's really the best I can do. My boyfriend is outside sawing things, so that'll be fun. I've got 3 cats that, you can probably hear them scratching now. I've got 3 cats and a free-range bunny to contend with as well while making this rough draft of an audiobook. So we might hear the bunny thumping around. We might hear a cat scratching in the litter box. We might see a cat tear this whole thing down because they're already eyeing that top shelf. Or they might just come and say hi. Either way, I think it's pretty clear that this situation is great for this little intro video to this, whatever it is. But when it comes to actually recording this audiobook, I'm gonna have to find a much quieter environment. So in order to prepare for recording the audiobook, I thought I would do a little bit of studying. I do listen to audiobooks, usually just nonfiction, and usually just on writing, because I find that listening to somebody else talk about writing, it's kind of like having a writing coach in your ear, which is kind of cool. And then science astronomy stuff. That's kind of my deal. So fiction, not so much, mainly because I don't like the sound of being read to like I'm a child. And a lot of audiobook narrators are oh God, I hate this. A lot of audiobook narrators fluctuate their voice quite dramatically to account for voices and stuff, and I just find that super annoying. So since this isn't really my lane, I thought that I needed to study up a little bit and find where I'm going to pave my own lane within that sphere. So I picked 2 audiobooks. One, I had interest in reading this book originally because I saw the author's masterclass and I thought she was awesome. And so one of the books that I downloaded was The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I probably should have chosen something else. The audiobook narrator was great, but I am not into fantasy, and this book is fantasy. I don't know, she just kind of captivated me on the masterclass, and it sounded really interesting, the premise of this book, so I gave it a go, but I only listened to the first few chapters, and it's not my deal. So I didn't finish it, but the audiobook narrator herself, she was very good, very in role with even the chapters when they weren't dialogue. She was still very much in that character's head, and I respected that technique a lot, but she was very voicey, so to speak, with a little bit more so than I would like to be. The other one I downloaded, I wanted specifically to find one that had won an Audio Award, which is an award given to audiobook narrators, and I wanted to see what the best of the best do it, how they sound. And when I was looking through the list of winners, I found a book that it was already on my to-be-read list, which is Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson, which was fucking awesome. And that narrator was much different than the first. Her voice was very monotone throughout the whole thing, which on one hand kind of reminds me of my own voice, and on the other hand is kind of annoying, so do it that way you will. But she didn't go crazy with the voices. It was just slight changes in pitch, or even like just the way, the vernacular, the way it was spoken, it was ever so slightly different. And you could always tell who was talking, even though she didn't go crazy with the voices. So I thought, thank God I don't have to do character voices. I think that is good by way of introduction, and I'm gonna go ahead and get all this stuff wired up, set up, and I'll see you in a second. All right, so it seems like we might be doing the thing. I've got my iPad with my book all loaded up and ready to go. I've got my coffee because nothing says crystal clear audio like a milky throat. Rough draft, all good. Let's see. I had to raise my ass a little bit in order to reach the microphone properly, so I'm sitting on a couple blankets. Okay, now for the real shit. Let's see. Before I begin, just remember this is a rough draft. By the time it is released as an audiobook, this will be perfection. But today, probably a little more on the rough side of a rough draft. Let's see. Okay. Let's do it. A father loses his daughter in 3 distinct phases. The first is when she begins menstruation. This is no place for a father. A stain in the panties so obscene that it casts dad into a state of intentional blindness. A contract signed long before birth. Because when that time comes, she's no longer his little girl. Every month, her womanly body now ripens, then opens, then purges. An expectation unfulfilled. A cervix weeping. Ooh, finding a place to take a breath. That's a thing. Okay. The second phase is when she loses her virginity. If she's lucky, there is love. I was not so lucky. When a girl loses her virginity, her entire world is forced open. Redo. So, I read somewhere online that if you fuck up, clap your hands, it creates a little spike, and you can easily remove it. So we're going to clap to indicate the beginning of the fuck up and the end of it. When a girl loses her virginity, her entire world is forced open alongside her body. A boy looming larger, eclipsing all others. There's pain, too. My God, is there pain. And your father, the man who's protected you, loved you like an extension of his own heart, his own skin, is woefully vacant. Here, there grows a new secret, a new estrangement. And then the third phase. There comes a time in every child's life when they begin to see their parents for exactly who they are. Clouds part. Illusions dissipate. Mom is no longer the picture of domesticity. I can hear sawing outside. Okay. Is it sawing? Yes, okay. No getting around that today. Mom is no longer the picture of domesticity. She's a caged animal fighting for survival, a self-made victim of willful ignorance. And Dad is no longer the superhero he once was. He's a liar, a cheat. And the truth hits you like a stone to the face. Your father can't protect you. He can't even protect himself. My entire life changed the night of the hurricane. It was also the night of the Halloween dance. Dad told Mom he'd be chaperoning the dance, but he wasn't there. He was with that blonde woman from the bar. I met her once. She had an accent, a slight drawl I couldn't place. That was the night I lost my virginity. It happened in the band room behind the tubas, where it smelled of brass oil and spit. He was a nice boy, but he wasn't the right boy. The carpet was sticky and rigid. My clothes were in a pile by the music stands. I stared at the ceiling, to the exposed piping with chipped paint next to a small yellow skylight, as a wound exploded from the softest part of my body. My fingers clawed at a carpet too dense to grasp. My heels sought ground, but they were trapped beneath his body. It was then that a flash of lightning filled the skylight. A crack of thunder soon followed, and as it faded away, a reverberation was left behind. All around us, the instruments began to ring. Ooh, that sounded terrible. Okay. All around us, the instruments began to ring and hum like wine glasses stroked by wet fingers, as though in the sudden absence of sound, they had begun to panic. That was technically the prologue, so I guess I should say prologue. And for some reason, that recorded 15 seconds of my audio over and over. It just kept... Oh, no. What the fuck did I do? Why did that record only... What the fuck? Yeah, that happened. But I will figure that out, and I'll be back with you in a minute. Alright, I think I've got it figured out. This is all a big learning process. Okay. Alright, I won't go through the prologue again because this is not the real recording. This is just practice for all of us. Let's see. Part 1. Innocence in the Season of Eddy. A Scorpion of Stars. July 1967. 3 months before the hurricane. Richard Quinn stands at the helm of the Valkyrie, dwarfed by the stars above and exalted from the waves below. They lift him higher and higher, cresting tall, capped with salty foam that lashes his face. He bares his teeth and screams into the gale whipping in from the Atlantic. He loves every second of it. The lights of Marathon and her surrounding islands grow smaller behind him. It won't be long before even the most nocturnal of residents snuff their lamps. At the bow, Danni bounces on her toes. Like her old man, she craves the sea. By summer's end, she'll be a freshman in high school, but her eyes still hold the wonderment of a child, and for that, Richard is grateful. The cool breeze is a welcome reprieve from the summer heat. Oh. The cool breeze is a welcome reprieve from the Florida heat. In a matter of hours, the sun will rise, the air sagging with moisture. But at this moment, everything is crisp, dark, perfect. Nearly 30 miles from shore, Richard relies solely on the landmarks of his own memory. No buoys, no maps, no revolving lights. Only the black ocean below, with Saturn and Jupiter beaming down from the night sky. And the watchful gaze of a glittering scorpion, if the atmosphere is clear enough. Tonight, it is. Danni points ahead and shouts to her father. She spotted it. Richard cuts the motor, and the Valkyrie coasts across broad swells and closer to the churning waters of the humps. He descends the ladder to stand beside his daughter. "The range is right under our feet," he says. Danni peers overboard, like she's expecting to see the mountain peak beneath the surface. Richard hands her a flashlight, and Danni holds it against the rail. The ocean is more smoke than water, dense with swirling clouds of foam and krill. Something darts through the light, a flash of silver yellow. Danni jumps. What was that? Barracuda. And that? Dolphin, or tuna. Hard to say, she was fast. We're on top of the mountain right now? Yep. You see how the water is smooth, and then all of a sudden it's choppy, like two completely different oceans? She nods. That's where the peak is. The current hits it, and wham! Richard claps his hands. Instant waves. Richard surveys the water. Perhaps this is the night he will finally spot Mr. Brownstone navigating the current. Mr. Brownstone is a Florida Keys legend with more Mr. Brownstone is a Florida Keys legend with more sea tales attached to his name than Richard himself. A dinosaur of the sea. Somewhere between 1,000 years old, or 1,000,000, depending on who you ask. Men say the beast is enormous, upwards of 20 feet long. Many times Richard has insisted. Longer, 30 feet, wide as a sailboat. I've seen him myself. But Richard has never seen Mr. Brownstone. He's only heard the stories of other men, of tarpon pilfered from fishing lines, the mammoth hammerhead shark springing from the depths to snatch fish from the air, startling the fishermen as much as the tarpon. Richard throws a glance toward the islands, but as always, the giant shark remains concealed beneath the infinite black. "Be careful, Pumpkin," he says, grasping his daughter's shoulders. "If you fall in, I might not get to you before the sharks do." I lean over the railing as though in flight, illuminating underwater galaxies. The ocean churns like water on a stovetop as the waves crest above the submerged mountain range, arcing into a circle before melting into the calmer swells beyond. I imagine a sea monster sleeping far below, his snores creating sound waves that travel up, 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 rippling the surface. A school of small whitefish funnel into the flashlight beam, circling and darting as though unable to escape. Got it. A school of... I'm gonna have a bruise. A school of small whitefish funnel into the flashlight beam, circling and darting as though unable to escape the boundary. One brave soul breaks free, leaving the rest imprisoned. Dad takes the flashlight and turns it off, wiping it on the deck. Wiping it on the deck? What the fuck? I've read this book too many times. My brain is just filling in words at this point. Maybe this is why professionals do this. Okay. Dad takes the flashlight and turns it off, placing it on the deck. He clicks on a small lantern and whispers, "Come with me." I follow him to the stern where the lantern exposes a mere crescent of his face, like a crime noir comic. He stands there for a long moment, chiseled by moonlight and smelling of salt and leather, and I beam with pride. Richard Quinn, my dad. He spreads his arms and winks at me, and then, like an anchor, he falls backward, crashing into the water below. "Dad!" I yell, running to the edge, peering into the depths. "Daddy!" I search for his shirt, his hair, anything. We're miles from shore. No neighbors to call for help, not even a full moon to light the way home. My mother's voice floods my head. "One day your father's going to get on his boat and never come back. Poof, just disappear." Mom always says this. A self-deception she can't escape from. And every time she speaks these words, I want to slap my hand over her mouth and pinch her lips shut before she wills her own worst fear into existence. My worst fear, too. But Dad would never do that, and I wish she would stop saying it. I hear something splash in the distance and rush to retrieve the flashlight, begging the stars above to let it be my father and not Mr. Brownstone. By the time I return, Dad's hands are grasping the stern, his body bobbing up and down like a buoy. He flings his head backward to rid the water from his face. "Get in," he urges. "No way, they're sharks." He scoffs. "Sea puppies. Sea puppies with teeth." He grins up at me, a gaping, lopsided smile that looks absurd on his face. "Mine are bigger." And then Dad kicks away from the boat, floating high and low atop the ocean. "Get in, pumpkin," he says. "It's the only way to see the stars." I think of all the things that could be below us right now. Not real sea monsters, of course, but tuna and swordfish, giant groupers and barracudas, stingrays and sea turtles, mountain ranges in an endless abyss, and, yes, sharks. I'm scared, I confess. I won't let anything happen to you. And I know he's telling the truth. I step closer to the edge, hold my nose, count to 5, and jump. The ocean is warmer than I expect, and I float on my back, casting a celebratory woohoo into the night before paddling closer to Dad. I think once more of all the scary and dangerous things that are surely waiting in the darkness, but the swells quickly soothe my fears, because Dad was right. This is the only way to see the stars. Even though this is one chapter, it bounces back and forth. There's little thingies to indicate change of perspective, hence the long pause. Richard Quinn collapses onto the couch in his study, depleted yet still greedy. Already he misses the sea. The pillow has long ago gone limp, so he folds it in half before wedging it into his neck. On his desk is a small bronze statue of a whale. It's heavy, practically a paperweight, and stacked beneath it are lesson plans for his upcoming American Lit class. Danni isn't the only one anticipating the commencement of a new school year. Richard adjusts his assignments periodically to alleviate his growing boredom. This year, he's decided to assign To Kill a Mockingbird. Richard adjusts his assignments periodically to alleviate his growing boredom. This year, he's decided to assign To Kill a Mockingbird as their reading requirement, since Catcher in the Rye was removed from the library for profanity and sexual situations. If he is ever to assign To Kill a Mockingbird, it has to be now. Already, parents across the nation are beginning to speak out against it. A recent protest described the book as damaging to integration and accused schools of institutionalized racism. Richard listens to Miriam toss about in the next room. She won't be pleased with his late-night arrival home. He should buy her something pretty, maybe that electric skillet she's been wanting, in pink to match her hand mixer. Richard mashes his face into the pillow and the fabric snags his whiskers. He closes his eyes. When he can't sleep, Richard imagines he is fishing, the pole rigid in his hands. The line swaying from side to side, winding, pulling, the clacking of the reel. But tonight, sleep eludes him, and his thoughts return to the upcoming school year. Though his lesson plans vary from year to year, one thing remains unchanged. On the final day of school, Richard Quinn enters his classroom without a word and drops a heavy book onto his desk to get their attention. He waits for silence, reverence. He waits until the hum of anxiety fills the room. It used to be easy, but word has been passed down. Last year, students eagerly awaited him on that final morning, and other students cut their classes to sneak into his room, just to hear his book slam against the wood, to hear Mr. Quinn recite entirely from memory the first chapter of Moby Dick, his voice roaring so loudly that neighboring teachers pounded on the walls. Tucked into the couch in his study, Richard recalls his favorite lines, one by one, drawn out and deliberate. "Call me Ishmael. Some years ago, never mind how long precisely, having little to no money in my purse." Miriam continues to slumber in the bedroom, and as she shifts beneath the sheets, Richard pictures her body shifting as well. Oh, that works too. Miriam continues to slumber in the bedroom, and as she shifts beneath the sheets, Richard pictures her body shifting as well, thin and tan, and he is suddenly erect. Deep into distant woodlands winds a mazy way, reaching to overlapping spurs of mountains bathed in their hillside blue. Richard adjusts his erection against his leg and hopes it goes away. He's almost to his favorite line. 2 and 3 there floated in my inmost soul endless processions of the whale, and midmost them all, one grand hooded phantom like a snow hill in the air. Miriam coughs in her sleep, a gentle and feminine sound. Richard strokes himself through pants, still damp with seawater, and licks the salt from his arm just to taste the ocean. And when he can take no more, when his body is ready to burst like a wave over the reef, he leaves his study and takes his wife. Whew. Okay. Well, that is the end of chapter 1. So that is the official rough draft recording of an audiobook. And from paying attention to myself as I speak, I realize I probably need to slow down a little bit. I've always been a super fast reader and talker, and the two of those together do not coincide with audiobook requirements. So I have to slow down. I'm not super down with like crazy character voices, so I'm hoping that the slightest fluctuations are good enough. I'm not going to be like, get over here, girl. So I don't know. We'll see. So thanks for checking in. And if I decide to do this again and record the next rough draft, which maybe I will, maybe I won't, I don't know. I'll let you know. All right. For now, bye.